In this week's podcast, we talk with Elizabeth Hargrave, game designer of Wingspan and member of the Tabletop Game Designer Association.
The beat of the drums echoes in the pulse beat of the young braves.
Salut les joueuses, salut les joueurs, je suis Paul Gara. Je suis à la Gen Con, c'est la première interview qu'on fait. Et j'ai la grande chance d'être en compagnie de Elizabeth Hargrave. Salut Elizabeth. Hello Elizabeth.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good.
Thank you a lot for your availability. We're going to talk about your work as a game designer and your next release. I read that you discovered board games in 2004, 2005.
Maybe even a little bit later than that, but
okay,
somewhere around there.
When you discovered board game, you wanted to create your own, to design your own board games at the same time, or it takes you time to
It took some time. I was just playing and happy to be discovering games for several years, but eventually I started having conversations with my friends that a lot of the board games that we were playing were about things that we weren't very interested in. Right, we had a lot of games about castles at the time.
Knights and
yeah, right, trains. And my husband and I were getting interested in birding at the time, and he was the one that said, you know, what if there was one of these board games but about birds? And my brain just latched onto that and wouldn't let it go.
And it's something. It's always something in your work. You think about the universe you want to show, and then you think to the mechanics.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Usually the theme, the story is first.
Yes.
Yeah.
I also read that you are a big fan of Race for the Galaxy, and it was a source of inspiration for Wingspan.
Yes. I love engine builders in general, but Race for the Galaxy, I was playing a lot specifically at that time, and I still play it today. Yeah.
It's a tableau building, Race and Wingspan, but the main difference for me is the cards, because in Race for the Galaxy you have lots of cards during the game, and in Wingspan it's very hard to get cards. You have to make very strict choice.
Yeah, I guess so. I think the biggest similarity, obviously, is that it's a tableau builder, that you're laying the cards out in front of you and spending resources to do it. But yeah, I sort of started with that in mind, but it became different very quickly.
Wingspan has a huge commercial success. And you won the Kenner Spiel, and you are one of the, I think you are two women having a spiel alone without co-designer, without men on the box, on the cover, and now it's a core system. How did you manage with this idea that your board game is not only your board game, but it's a core system like Pandemic and other designers going to appropriate?
Yeah, it's kind of wild to see what's the game that came out a couple of years ago, Raising Robots. Is that the name of it? That very clearly has the 3 rows that you're building the cards in, and it's fun to me. I mean, there's a saying in English, I don't know if you have it in French, that imitation is the highest form of flattery, right?
Yes, okay.
Yeah. So it doesn't bother me to see things like that. It's fun, and you know, that's most board games start at a point of, you know, looking for mechanics that work in other ways, but putting your own spin on them. But yeah, I don't think I can really wrap my head around the fact that there are 2 million copies of Wingspan out in the world. What? It's incomprehensible to me.
It's a very different way of treating of approach of the theme, because we have lots of board games with nature. Most of them is resources exploitation. You have to make things growing like carrots and I don't know, agricola. And you have a naturalistic approach. I mean, you see what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think of farming games as games about nature, because they're so human-centered, right? It's all about how to use nature for your own devices. And so I mean, one of the core things that I was thinking about when I started working on Wingspan was the idea that as much as we have sort of economic systems and all the games that we play about medieval European cities, there are economic systems at work in nature as well. And animals need resources just like people do, but they're different resources, and the economy might work in a different way.
you enjoy to have this kind of scientific approach of nature, more documented.
Yeah, I think that's my taste as a gamer as well, that I really like games about real things in the world more than I like games about fantasy. And it's my taste with my hobbies. I spend a lot of time in nature. I listen to science podcasts. It's just what I'm interested in.
In your other board games, you choose that kind of universe theme. I don't know if we should say theme, because theme and universe are maybe different, and sometimes we make the confusion in board games. But in your next board games, Sanibel is going to be released next year.
Yes,
it's the same thing. You can talk about Sanibel.
Yeah, so Sanibel is first of all, the name of it comes from an island off the coast of Florida where I grew up. Not on the island, but I grew up in the state of Florida. And we would go to this island, Sanibel, that's really known for its seashells. So it's a game about collecting seashells on the beach. And you walk down the beach. You have a little meeple that's walking down the beach, which is a board that has different sections on it where the shells are sort of washing up out of the ocean. And you're picking up the shells, which are tiles that are either hexagons or diamonds, and you're placing them on a grid on your own personal player mat. That's like your bag of shells. So all the scoring has to do with the different types of shells and how they want to be arranged in your bag and what kinds of sets you want. So it's not as deep into the information as Wingspan is, although in the sense that like the Wingspan cards have all the little facts on them and all the different characteristics of the birds. Yes. Like the shells are just shells. But in the rulebook, we did do a little 2-page spread that has little facts about the different animals that make the shells, because I think that's something that really resonates with people in Wingspan, like being able to learn a bit about this thing that you're exploring in the game. So I learned some things putting that together, because I sort of recognized all the shells, but I didn't even know all of the names of them when I started working on the game.
Yes. So you took information to make your board games, or it was more instinctive at the beginning?
I definitely do a lot of research for them. Yeah, I mean, Wingspan is the most, because there is so much information on the cards. I have to really. It takes me a long time to construct a deck for one of the Wingspan expansions, because I'm going through like the list of all the birds in the region and how common are they with the data from eBird and the Cornell lab, and then pulling like what their habitats are and what their nest types are and what their food is. Like that's a lot of information. It's a lot of research work. And then trying to find the right ones that are balanced. For Sanibel, I also went on iNaturalist. I don't know if you know that it's like a community science project where people can submit their observations of nature. And so it's a mapping project basically to see what species occur where. And you can submit seashells as evidence of an animal, even if it doesn't still have the animal in it. And so you can look like for a certain beach, what shells are being reported in that area. So I was able to go on there and say like, okay, these are some of the most common things that people actually find on Sanibel Island. And that was part of how I constructed the specific shells that are in the game.
There is another board game from you, the Fox Experiment. It's directly inspired by a scientific experience.
Right, yeah.
Oh, do you were aware of this experience? And when you were aware, you said, okay, I want to make a board game on it?
Yeah, I think that the first time that I heard about it was a podcast called Radio Lab.
Okay.
That covers science stories. And I think that they definitely have a whole episode on it. And I think that was the first time that I heard about it. But I kept coming across it in different ways. At one point, there was an article in National Geographic as well, but I don't think that was the first thing that I saw, because I went and looked it up. And then eventually there was a book that came out about the experiment, so I read that before I started working on the game. But yeah, for that one, I got really fascinated by the idea that you could do a game where you're passing something down through generations, and like how would you construct an item in the game that then, like, how do you make a baby fox that becomes a parent, and like how do you continue that information on a thing that you have to build inside the game. And so we ended up with the dry erase cards. At some points I had little, small cardboard pieces that you were putting little chits inside of a larger thing with double layer cardboard. But yeah, that was sort of, so a lot of times I have I want to do a game about this subject, but I don't start actually working on something obviously until I have an idea about how to actually physically represent that in a game.
In Dark Grove and the Fox Experiment, you have co-designers, and sometimes you make your own board games on your own. And what are the difference for you? What do you prefer? What is the advantage of one of or two of being alone or having a co-designers?
Yeah, those two games came about very differently. So the Fox Experiment actually started as a solo design.
Okay.
And then the one of the developers that the publisher hired to work on it at the end of the process had some really good ideas with how to do the dice, because I had been really struggling that I was using D6s for a long time and there was a lot of variance in the dice rolls, and he came up with the system of the little symbols that are on there that just reduces the variance a lot. And just made everything work so well. And so I was like, your name should be on the box. You came up with this very important thing in the game. So it did not start as a co-design, but we loved working together, and I would love to work with Jeff again. And then Mark Wooten, who worked on Undergrove with me, was the developer on Mariposas. Mm-hmm. He's on staff at AEG, or full-time on contract, I guess. So, yeah, when we were done working on Mariposas together, we said, we should work on another game together. So that one was from scratch with him. But I also, and I do like it. I think that, Mark and I had very different approaches to how we think about games. He's super mathy and in his head, and I very much just have to make the thing and play with it and see how it works. And that's a nice balance, because he would see things in the math that I wasn't seeing, and I would just be like, dude, we just have to play test it and we'll find out the right answer. And he'd be like, okay.
You are complementary.
Yeah, exactly. But I also, I do really like the control of working on my own and being able to set the pace of working on my own.
You can work on your own rhythm. My
own rhythm, my own ideas, really feeling like it is my own thing. And then when I do that, I really like that the publishers that I work with do have someone come in at the end as a developer to, help with that final polish. When I'm so deep in it, I can't see sometimes what the remaining flaws are, and it's super valuable to have a developer come in and work on something at the end.
It was different for Wingspan and Wingspan. I think you're not you are developer for Wingspan, but yes. But I think on BGG you are credited as a co-designer for one, and maybe.
Oh, interesting. Well, BGG doesn't have a category for developers, so they don't have a way to list someone. Yes. I hadn't noticed that they put me in the designer field.
Wingspan, you are you are credited as a code. I think so.
I'll have to look. I mean, I should raise that with BGG, because I think that it's becoming an increasingly important role. It's always been important, but I think now it's there are people who their whole livelihood is being a developer, and it would be nice to credit that better on BGG. There are people who do it as staff within, full-time within a publisher, but there are also people who do it freelance.
Yes.
That smaller publishers might just hire them for individual games, or because they, have a good experience with similar games that they might be able to work on it. I have several friends who do a lot of development who are not on the staff of a publisher. So it'd be for them, it's really important to have those credits. Yes. Right?
Yes.
I forget how we started talking about this. And if there's a question I didn't answer.
So to be a developer, comparing to be a game designer.
Right. So for both Wormspan and Finspan, they called me a developer, and I guess I was sort of, but I was there from the beginning, but I was never hands-on working on the game. I helped get Connie and David and Michael started with like showing them how I think about the balance in Wingspan, and like the score on a bird card, for example, is sort of there's a formula that goes into it in terms of how much food you're paying for the card and what the other characteristics of the bird are versus what the power is, and that all goes like through a formula, and then I don't have to think about each one, right? It just tells me the answer. So I sort of walked them through that and gave them one of my spreadsheets, and so that they could sort of build on that. So I think that's part of the core DNA of like that balance helps those games feel related to Wingspan. And then especially with Wormspan, Connie's a friend of mine. She lives locally, so I was able to play test several times along the way. And we had a lot of really interesting conversations about like what would make a game feel like it's related to Wingspan, but different enough to be its own game. And she went in a lot of different directions as we were sort of feeling that out. There were times when like your cavern that you're putting the dragons in could go in multiple different directions. It wasn't in the 3 rows. And at some point we were like, okay, I think the 3 rows are actually part of what you need to share to be in this family, right? So that was a really interesting process. But I was never like actively designing with them. It was more playtesting and weighing in and signing off on things. I'm going to go playtest the next Wingspan expansion tomorrow because those guys are here, and we figured it would be a good chance to actually play it in person.
And you are okay with the idea of having other iterations derived from Wingspan? If the project is interesting, I guess. But
right, yeah, no, I think it's fun. And those two were actually subjects that we were getting a lot of requests for. It's not random. So, which, like, dragons make sense to me because like fantasy is such a part of board games, and the fish surprised me, but I was all in on I love it. I love that part of the animal kingdom, so I was excited for that one especially.
I think that with Wingspan, there was a starting for lots of board games using this naturalist approach. Okay, sometimes not so maybe opportunist from an opportunist way, but do you think it changes something? Do you feel there is a change? Because in board games we are lots of adventure and imagination, and lots of thematics are not treated. Whereas in cinema literature, we are going to treat about, love, passion, romance, death, sickness, and everything. Do you think there is an evolution?
I mean, first of all, I think there were some other nature-themed games that were already on their way when Wingspan came out. Like Cascadia came out soon enough after Wingspan that I'm pretty sure Randy was already working on it.
Yes.
But I do think that Wingspan showed other publishers that there was a hunger for these games, that it's my cynical take on it is that a lot of people who run board game publishing companies have to be like at their desk all the time, at conventions all the time, inside, not thinking about nature very much. And so it's almost like a blind spot if you're playing games about certain subjects and that's like all you're experiencing, then you're going to stay in that world. And so it's really fun to see when people come and do new subjects. Like, I love all the nature games because that's my thing, but there's all these other people who are doing fun stuff, who are, self-publishing or finding publishers who want to take a risk and doing something out of the blue. And it's fun to see. And I think the more games about the more different subjects, then that's another way to bring people into this hobby.
I completely agree with you. I'm not against imagination and fantasy board games, but I would like more diversity, in fact, more different propositions.
Right.
To be more closer from the world we are part of.
Yeah.
We are going to talk about also your political commitment, because you use your statute. Even if I said sometimes you're tired with always being named because as the only female designer, but you really appropriate this statute to focus on things that maybe in the board game industry we don't want to talk about: inclusivity, diversity, the place of women, place of marginalized people. You read an article on Jamie Stegmaier.
Yeah.
So, and you explain, you said that in convention, for example, when you arrive and you're not a white man, heterosexual and cis, you don't see the problem. But if you belong to a marginalized group, you see that there is something missing.
Yeah. It was something I really just felt personally when I first started designing. Things have changed a lot in the U.S. designer world. Like when I go to playtesting events, it's less common now that I'll be the only woman. But locally, when I was first starting, it was there was a playtest, or there was a just gaming group that I went to where I was almost always the only woman at a local diner. And, those guys were great to me, but it still felt weird. I like to use the example that at my gym, I often go to a Zumba class, at like an aerobics dance class, and it's all women, almost always.
Yes.
Every once in a while, a man will come. He never comes back because it's a weird feeling to be the only one. Sometimes that example helps guys get it because they understand what that would feel like to go be dancing in a group of only women, right? And so those of us who are here, who are designing games, have had to push through that feeling. And the more of us that stick around, the easier it gets for everyone that comes after us. And so part of the push that I've been doing for that has been purely selfish. I want some company, right? But also, it's just like what I was talking about before. And then the more perspectives we have, the more different games we have, it's going to grow the hobby, and it's going to make it easier to pull more people in. And because games are for everybody. It's a human drive to play, and we should, when the gaming community and the game design community doesn't look like the community at large, there's something off. There's something that's causing that.
I don't know in the US, but for example in France, we know that in board game associations or just as a player, there may be half and half between women and men. But when you go to the conventions, more men. When you go to being a game designer, more men, a publisher, and being the CEO of the publishing company, more men. And it's funny because, there is this kind of...
right, that's a pipeline.
Yes, exactly. We lose women at each step, in fact.
Yes, for sure.
I don't know if in the US you have the same feeling, because when you look here, for example, for women and men, lots of women are at the convention today.
Which is a change.
Yes. Yes, I understand.
Even just at Gen Con, I remember the first year I came was 2016, and I remember feeling outnumbered. And it's less obvious now. Probably if you counted, it would be slightly more men, but it's much closer to 50-50. But I talk about this for just like a game night too, right? If you're scheduling game night on a Thursday night or something, and you have friends that have kids, someone's staying home with the kids to put them to bed.
Yes.
If you're coming to Gen Con and you've got a family and you can't afford to bring them, or your kids don't want to come and they're not old enough yet, someone's staying home with the kids, and who's doing that?
It was the most leisure time and disponibility, and most of the time we know that women are more in charge of the management of the family.
Right, which, that's a whole another social question. But in most families, the women choose that but also are expected to do that
Yes.
and are choosing it because it's expected.
And concerning other marginalized group, for example, if we think about colored people, I think there are more white people here, for example.
Yes.
It was something I was thinking because I prepared the interview. I was looking at people to see the representativity, and I have to say that there's a very huge majority of white people, in fact.
Yes. Yeah. And
Do you see evolution on this point?
that's a good question. I haven't been walking around the floor so much yet to have an opinion. Gen Con works with a group called the Rose Gauntlet Foundation to have a BIPOC lounge, so a lounge for people who are Black, Indigenous, people of color. And that I think, I have a lot of friends that hang out there. And I think they find that as like a very welcoming place and a good place to sort of center yourself and feel supported so that you can then go out into the larger community and push through. And I've done that at some playtesting conventions as well, or other board game conventions too. Like sometimes we'll have a breakfast or something for women at the convention on one of the very first days of just like, okay, let's all meet and make this connection and know that we are here, even if we're not seeing each other well represented when we're mixed in with everyone else. And I think that does make a difference in just making people feel supported and seen. Yeah.
You also have a list of female board game designer and a list for colored people game designer. And I was looking at the list. I was thinking about, for example, Fantasy Flight Games. You have lots of women inside. But when you talk to people, they don't know, most of the time they don't know, for example, that Aurora Arkham, MG Newman is a woman. They don't know that on Lord of the Ring Journey, I don't know the name in English, sorry, there is Grace Holding House. It's something, or for the Mansion of Madness, it's Nikki Valence, the second edition. Sometimes it's funny. It's just, but they exist, in fact.
Yeah.
They're here.
And it's, we're sitting here actually in the Hasbro booth because Sanibel's coming out with Avalon Hill, which is part of Hasbro. And, the public-facing people at Hasbro are mostly men, not entirely. But a huge part of the team working on Sanibel was women. So they're, when you look at that list, which is up on Board Game Geek now, I have a list of games designed by women and a list of women who design games. You can look at it both ways. They're a huge list.
Yes.
There's lots of people. There's just even more game designers, right? So we're still in the minority. And we're in the minority of people who are really making it to the top of the popularity lists. But it's changing, right? Like I was just talking about, there's a chart that I have used for years that a woman named Tanya Pubuda made for her PhD dissertation, where she looked at the top 400 games on Board Game Geek at the time and who designed them, and it's 97% men as the designers of those games. But I want to go update that. I need to carve out some time to go look up all the names now, because for example, Connie Vogelman now has 2 games in the top 400 on Board Game Geek, right? Like we're chipping away at it gradually, even at those top levels. So that's great to see. It's fun. Eventually, people will be like, "Oh, what was the fuss?"
You are still a member of the Tabletop Association for Game Designers. I think you're the president.
No, I'm the treasurer.
We're going to talk about something very recent. We are talking about the announcement by CGE of a codenames iteration with the Harry Potter, and about the reaction of the board games community. And the association published a statement about this because J.K. Rowling is known for a speech, but also because she's giving money, in fact, to...
Right.
Yeah, and I think so. Maybe the most different point on that, she's directly, when you buy something Harry Potter, you give her money, and this money is going to be used against trans people. It was important for you to have this reaction.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that's been really getting a lot of attention, I think, especially because of the build-up to Gen Con and knowing that CTE would be selling this game here. So we wanted to get something out as people were talking about it in relation to this particular convention. And, we have many members who are trans and even within my local game design group, we have several trans members. And so it's I think, really painful to them to see major publishers still being willing to work with J.K. Rowling. And we wanted to support them and say something about it.
So there are lots of reaction going from reviewers, American reviewers. They say that they were not, it was really followed. But
yeah, I would say in the American board gaming community, my experience, I mean, maybe it's just because like my local board gaming community is so strong, like so welcoming to folks from the trans community, and some of them are really becoming leaders in making new games happen, and like how can you not want to support that?
You also had a mobilization against the new tariffs from the current administration of the United States. It was important.
Yeah, I mean, the tariffs are a disaster for the board game industry. People are amazingly navigating their way through it, but it's really hard. I mean, it's just adding to the price of every game, and not raising prices by that much is definitely going to decrease demand. And to the extent that some publishers are trying to make up for that by spending, making lower profits per game, it's going to be a combination of making lower profits per game and selling fewer games, and it's not good. And so, yeah, the TTGDA and GAMA both have put out statements about it. We've been lobbying on Capitol Hill. We've been encouraging our members to contact their members of Congress. And, when we were on Capitol Hill talking to members of Congress, we were hearing from a lot of the staff that, they're not just hearing from board games, they're hearing from every industry that manufactures overseas that this is just going to be really harmful. So it seems like we haven't made much progress on getting change on that front, but it feels good to at least be explaining to our members of Congress that, like, this is how it works in our industry. And one of the key messages that we were really saying to them is that, a lot of board game publishers are small businesses. Yes. And we are at the mercy of the existing manufacturing infrastructure. A small publisher does not have the resources to somehow magically build a manufacturing plant in the United States. We have to go where the manufacturing already exists, and it does not exist in the United States. So there is no choice but to pay the tariffs, and it's just a huge tax on goods that are for people's enjoyment.
We are at the end of the interview. Are there other issues you want to say, or things you want to say, or I
really appreciate the chance to meet with you and to talk to folks in another part of the world. I'm going to be at Essen in October. So
okay, so I will be there.
I see people there too.
Yes. Thank you so much for your time and availability. It was a great pleasure to meet you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
This interview was recorded at Gen Con on August 1st, 2025, and this episode is produced by Paul Garat and Hammer. Our show is completely independent. Its contents are free, as in free speech, and we are not sponsored. Follow Paul Garat's account on Facebook, X, Blue Sky, and Instagram. Thank you for listening to Le Point de Paul Garat, and until next time for a new episode.